Today's conversation is on The Quantum Leap Strategy by Pritchett. We have been discussing books that have been very helpful for me on the entrepreneurial journey to build 3 successful businesses, cultivate ideal, harmonious relationships, as well as communication skills. I'll link to a playlist which contains the discussions we've had thus far. This particular book is one that I refer to regularly, more so in the earlier stages, if I was stuck. And by that I mean overthinking, thinking the same things over and over again and nothing changing, emotionally feeling stuck, and also behaviors, doing the same things over and over again and the results not changing. This particular book, I find, very short read. Just by reading it, the shift happens. And the reader ends up making what we can call a bold move, which changes a lot of things in their life, which again could be in business, relationships, etc. I believe it's important to consider every now and then making a quantum leap, as he describes in the book, which is doing something unconventional, making a bold move. Rather than overthinking it and imagining various scenarios of how things will not work out, rather than, as a result of that overthinking, not doing anything that is helpful, yet expecting different results, rather than doing that, consider the physical, emotional, mental approach to the spiritual truth that you are unlimited in potentiality, and do something that we could say is fearful, unconventional, or radically different. He says that a leap is a giant step into the unknown. That's where all the magic happens. I agree. Magic happens, I have found from my experience, doing things that we could say I wouldn't normally do. So I actually recommend every now and then doing things that you would never, let's say, do normally, yet there is curiosity in those things. Practical example for me would be in 2016, 17, 18, I was here predominantly in California. And that was actually a quantum leap for me. At a particular point, I decided to do a long stay in California. Actually, I had a TN visa as part of a consulting deal that I was involved with. I made the bold move and moved down here. And I didn't know anyone, maybe a few people that I met prior in the area that I was staying in. And that could be scary for some. it wasn't as scary for me because I remember in 2012, I made a bold move and moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico for a month and chose to stay in Playa del Carmen, Mexico for a month. And that was kind of scary because I didn't know anyone. But within a week or so, I ended up meeting people, getting invited to events, parties, get-togethers, and I would meet more people. And then over the course of the month, you could say, created a new life for myself. And it was exciting. Yet I chose to move back to Toronto. However, that experience was priceless. That's one of the benefits of practicing the quantum leap strategy, which is, again, simply making a bold move, doing something different, something that you could say is not what you normally do, outrageous. And it may not make any logical sense. Why would you do that? Well, there are many benefits, some of which that I found included creative thinking, meeting new people, trying new things which opened up more possibilities. And many of those experiences and also conversations I've had with those people and the relationships that I have formed inspired what I would incorporate into my business. I would learn how to communicate in different ways, which was very helpful during what we can call difficult conversations. I was able to adapt, thus adaptability, and cultivate a fluid mind and release identification, as we say, to dichotomous beliefs from which the person may suggest to themselves that it needs to be this way or that way, or it won't work out in their favor. Well, what if it can be both? What if it can be a variation? These are some of the realizations I had during these moments where I would do things different. So as mentioned, I had lived in the area for a while for a consulting deal, and also I was making videos around that time from California. I met a lot of people, had a lot of wonderful experiences. And it was a moment, a key decision to take that step. I could have overthought it. I could have procrastinated it. I could have been lazy about it. I've spoken about this before, that there is a gap between an idea and then the step to see that idea into fruition, whatever it may be. Book the flight. Usually it's a simple step like that. Book the flight. And during this gap, a person may be overthinking it and bypassing the step by doing, or not doing, we could say, a whole bunch of things that are not helpful. When the thing to do that would be the most beneficial for the person is to simply take that step. Take the step, book the flight, start the business. If you see someone that you're interested in talking to, start a conversation with them. As a matter of fact, let's just do that right now. Let's walk over to this person. How you doing? That's a beautiful view here. I have a YouTube channel, so I make videos talking about creativity, spontaneity, stuff like that. Is this your morning walk? Yeah, it's a beautiful morning walk. I used to actually live in the area back maybe like 2017, and I used to do a morning run all the way through and then back. It was so inspiring, energizing. I miss it. So I'm back for another week. I'm from Canada. Oh, it's beautiful. We're getting into snowboarding season now, so that's going to start soon. I'm Joseph. Very good to meet you. Rose, didn't mean to put you on the spot and put you on the camera. You don't mind being on camera, right? I can actually send you a link to my channel. I'll probably release this video tomorrow. Well, it was very good meeting you. You have a wonderful walk. Thank you. So we see how you can do that. And it's not just meeting people, it's also starting a business, moving to the country that you want to move to. A quantum leap is literally one step away. And let's say if you didn't take this step, that's fine. No shame and condemnation. Here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity. So he says, when you reach for a quantum leap, you must first let go of the past. So the way I relate to this is we may be overthinking about making a move because the person in mind is identified with particular memories of their past. So for example, they may really want to start a conversation with someone and meet someone new. For example, where I would meet people when I'm out and about, in a cafe, where I was aware of what I was thinking prior to starting the conversation, during the conversation, and after the conversation. If there was thoughts that were related to outcomes that appeared in the past, by that I mean rejection or shaming and condemning. Let's say, and I had this growing up, let's say I saw someone that I was interested in talking to, I went up to him and started a conversation like that, and it didn't go according to plan. Let's say I asked the person for their phone number and they didn't give me their phone number. Some of my friends would laugh at me. So, that could be seen as shaming and condemning. And so then I was afraid of doing stuff like that. So these kinds of imaginal activities would flash upon my mind's eye while I was aware prior to starting a conversation. This imaginal activity would appear in my mind's eye of people looking at me and laughing at me. That is an awkward thing to do. Meanwhile, it's completely not awkward. Who suggests that it would be awkward? Just a genuine desire to connect in a harmonious way with a human being, and it'll play out accordingly, ideally, automatically, naturally. So I would have had these thoughts appearing in mind that belong to what we call the old man in the Bible. Those kinds of thinking patterns belong to the old man, so it's not you really thinking. And as they would appear in mind prior to these conversations, and sometimes during the conversations, I would release them and not identify with them. And the conversation would flow. It would flow very naturally, like the surfers here. This is one of the things that I used to do in the morning when I used to do what I would call the good morning run, where I would do stuff like that. I would run and I would say good morning to people. Sometimes I would stop and start a conversation with them. And I met so many people. I made so many friends just by doing this, what I call the good morning run. Now, as I did not identify with those thinking patterns, I would start conversations with people and it would turn into friendships. Sometimes it would turn into relationships. Sometimes it would turn into business connections. Sometimes it would just be a wonderful conversation that you would share with a person that would be memorable, joyous, fun. And for some, that can be considered a bold move because they're not used to doing something like that. I recommend trying it. It's okay if you feel awkward prior. It's okay if you feel awkward during. It's okay if you feel awkward afterwards. The quantum leap is powerful. Now, when I had moved down here, I got invited to so many events. I met a lot of people. I grew my business. My channel grew. And it was all a result of taking that step. An idea arose in mind from infinite intelligence. The idea suggested, what if you got a visa in California where you could stay for a year and have a wonderful time, experience what it's like living here? And then I said, that would be a great idea. Let's do it. And so I went and did a little bit of research. And it turns out there was a visa that I was qualified for. It is the Management Consultant TN visa. So I asked one of my clients if they would be interested in bringing me in on that visa so that I could work more closely with them, which they gladly accepted. I bought an ebook online on how to fill it out and how to make sure that you meet the criteria. I followed the steps and it worked. I booked the flight, subletted my place, and ended up staying in a place close by here. And that was the quantum leap. So the past, these kinds of thought patterns may say, but what about this? Well, what about that? I could say, well, it's hard to make friends. Why would I think that? Because maybe in the past it was hard to make friends. It's hard to come across opportunities to XYZ. Well, perhaps in the past it appeared that way. It didn't appear that way when I started my IT business and then a few years into it. But prior to that, it appeared that way because I wasn't making any moves. I was sitting around waiting for moves to happen. That's okay, no shame in condemnation. I was identified with fear, doubt, uncertainty-based beliefs. And those beliefs generated resistance. So these kinds of thoughts could appear in a person's mind. And as a result of identification to these particular thoughts, they can end up bypassing the step. So again, it's the idea that appears in mind. And as mentioned, I read this book, which is a very short read. I've done this a number of times. And then an idea appears in mind to do something. There's that moment when the idea appears in mind. And then there's a space for you to choose to take that step or not. And there can be procrastination during that space. They could be overthinking during that space. There may be strong emotions arising during that space. There may be, we could say, procrastination-based behaviors during that space, which is totally fine. No shame in condemnation. Release the emotions. Allow the emotions to be released. Stop the thinking. I recommend the 7-day mental and emotional diet video that I created. I'll link in the description to it. And what you notice, it feels easier to take the step, and take the step. Perhaps don't consume more information on how you should take the step or seek for all kinds of opinions on whether you should take the step or not, when clearly intuition gave you that step. So then you take the step. And things change in your favor. You may notice that environments change. People appear to change. Circumstances appear to change, to be in your favor. You may also notice that, as I had discussed, insights, perspectives arise, which you can take and integrate into your business, into your personal life. And these insights are profound. I find that I don't know how I would have accessed these insights unless I took the step. So what I like to do to practically apply this book is revisit it every now and then and consider throughout the year that I incorporate into my life a healthy amount of taking unconventional steps, bold moves. Another benefit of doing this that I found is it becomes a habit. What then ends up happening is what could be considered an unconventional step that could be scary, we could say, or bold, can become a regular habit, as it has been for me. Some of my friends say that you're always doing these kinds of things, spontaneous things. They're scary. Aren't you afraid? And I mentioned that through the practice of doing this again and again and again, the repetition, I find that these kinds of quantum leaps can happen more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis. So isn't it interesting that untrue thinking patterns in mind generate the illusion of the gap between the idea and taking that step? And one of my greatest joys in life, and I have experienced so much benefit from this joy, is to shorten that gap. Cease that gap. And then what ends up happening is you automatically do things that are bold, that are unconventional. And they happen for a reason, even if, let's say, I don't know what the reason is. I remember one time I was with Paul, the founder of Iris Reading, and this was prior to him running a workshop. I was with him in another part of California, and we were in Starbucks. And there was this woman in the lineup, and then we're talking about how Paul's doing the workshop. And then, about an hour later, we saw her name come through in the registrations for the online courses. Just by starting a conversation, without the intention of selling the workshops or the programs, it ended up happening. Now, I've even seen, we could say, big business deals get formed as a result of a spontaneous, bold move or an unconventional move. When I first came to California, it was in 2013. My client at the time, well, he was a person that I had met. I did a video on the channel, I'll link to it, called 5 Insights from a Podcast. I had this idea of making that video, and then I had an idea of tagging him on Facebook. He wasn't my friend on Facebook, but I tagged him in the post. And then he ends up getting in contact with me, and he asked me if I was interested in consulting in his seafood business. So he flew me in on a consulting deal. I consulted in his seafood business on IT, operations, optimization. And him and I are friends till this day. We did a lot of business together. He has referred a lot of business to me. Him and I are great friends. We met in 2013 as a result of this channel. At that time when that idea arose in my mind to make that video where I tagged him, I was going for a run up on a mountain in Austria because I had bought a one-way ticket to Europe at that time. And the idea arose, and right away I went back. I remember right after the run, I went back and recorded that video. After I recorded the video, the idea showed up, tag him on Facebook. Tagged him on Facebook. He reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "Yes." And we did the deal. I ended up in California for the first time. And actually the client one of the clients that he referred me to, the Abraham Group, run by Jay Abraham, who is a marketing legend. And I used to study Jay Abraham's marketing material back in the days while I was building my IT business. So that was an interesting surprise. Again, all due to applying the quantum leap strategy. So I ended up getting my TN visa through the Abraham Group. And their office is close by. So another reason why I ended up here. Now, one of the things that he says, the bigger the leap, the greater the rewards. The bigger the leap, the greater the rewards. So one that pops to mind that I talk about a lot was leaving my 10-year corporate career, which paid well, was a wonderful career, to start my IT business. During a time where people would say it was a recession, yet it worked out. Now, I find that when you take a quantum leap, after you take that quantum leap, it is helpful to engage in conversations with people who have taken quantum leaps, because maybe you can benefit from the hero's journey that follows, and they have some magic elixirs to share with you. It is also key and helpful to apply the 7-day mental and emotional diet to not have those past beliefs clutter the mind by not identifying with them, so that intuition can arise for the next step and the next step and the next step, so that you can see whatever comes as a result of taking that step into fruition as well, the various opportunities that appear after you take that step. And what is also very helpful is to entertain in your mind the value of the quantum leap strategy by Pritchett. It is helpful to remind yourself of that again and again. Speaking of which, when I used to do my good morning run here, as I had mentioned earlier, I used to listen to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret while I was running. I would run 2, 3, 4 days a week in the morning here, and I would listen to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret. Repetition of the same information, and repetition of the same information from different perspectives, and also repetition of the same behaviors, such as a healthy dose of quantum leaps, quantum leap-based steps in your life, and doing it in different areas of your life. You could do this in business, as mentioned. You could do this in relationships. You could do this in communication. For example, the spontaneous idea to do the workshop that I'm doing, which is one of the reasons that I'm here with Danielle Lynn, was also an idea that was a quantum leap idea. The idea appeared, we had a conversation about it, and Danielle and I moved forward with that idea right away. We didn't overthink it. We didn't hesitate. We moved forward with it. We took the step. And now we have a wonderful sold out event that we're going to do on Saturday coming up. If you're not making it live, we also have a live stream option, which I'll link to in the description. And there's another example. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I listen exclusively to the still small voice that is beyond identification to overthinking, emotional reactivity, and behavioral patterns, to be as I am, making the authentic, bold moves to rearrange this world to appear to be in harmony with me. I acknowledge the quantum leap insights are from the source. Thus I honor them by taking the steps that are received within. Through the repetition of taking these steps again and again, mind is purified from the illusions. The illusions appear to disappear, clearing the way to living my authentic life now.